Nobody in my conservative Southern family knew my sister was expecting until we received a phone call from an emergency room doctor interrupting spaghetti night. My mother took the call and she listened intently, and then her face got an expression I had never seen before. She was having trouble coming to terms that her daughter had just given birth and that she had lived in our house for the last 6 months, and none of us knew she was expecting. Now, if you knew my parents, you would probably describe their parenting style as something like semi-loving dictator. And my sister, she was great at following all the rules. She followed all the rules. Well, now as I think about it, she had trouble with one of the rules, but that's beside the point. So, my parents went from being dictator to all of a sudden doing everything by committee. Immediately, they started asking everyone's opinion about what they should do about my sister. They asked friends, neighbors. They even asked me, and I was 13 years old. I definitely should not be giving opinions on this. But you know what? I sort of felt emboldened by this newfound power. They were putting together this ragtag committee that was making decisions for my sister, and all of a sudden I'm part of it. And I sort of felt, wow, I'm a hot snot, And so as we were sitting in the waiting room one night in the hospital, I blurted out to my parents, my sister should not marry that boy. My explanation is that she was on scholarship at university. She was by far the most gifted of all of us. She really had a bright future. My mother sat motionless. My father was barely breathing. This didn't deter me, though, and I made my next proclamation, which was, and by the way, we should talk about putting the baby up for adoption. My mother's face from spaghetti night returned. My father had his own indecipherable expression, but his definitely had a tinge of anger. Now, I knew I had crossed a line, but I really believed that truth was the currency that adults traded in. And so I looked at my parents and I said, Mom and Dad, I need to be honest with you. I need you to know I'm a Democrat. You know those New Yorker magazines you found in my room? It wasn't just for the cartoons. I read the articles. Now, you laugh about this. I was 13 years old, living in the Deep South, way conservative parents. I really thought this was a secret I was going to take to my grave. Now, I don't know which of my proclamations did it, but I was definitely out on the whole committee to make decisions for my sister. The rest of the week became a blur. There were conversations being had, there were decisions being made, but no one was talking to me. So on Thursday, my Sunday dress was laid out on the bed, and there was a note attached to it that just read, "Be dressed by 4:30. Are we going out to dinner? Were we having people over in the midst of all this chaos? I had no idea what was going on. But about that time, the doorbell rang, and there was our pastor and a man and a woman that I had not ever seen before, and they all three had my mother's face from spaghetti night on. Had someone died? Before I could get them settled in the living room, the doorbell rang again, and I looked at them, and it was a boy standing there that looked vaguely like the boy my sister had been dating for the last year, but he looked 1,000 years older. And I wondered in that moment, does he know there is a committee of people that he has never met that are making some of the biggest decisions in his life? And in that moment, I felt sorry for him. The person my parents were telling me was the villain in our family drama started turning into the sympathetic character. It took until that moment for me to realize that there was going to be a wedding at our house that day. I ran to my sister's room and I braced myself in her door and I blurted out, "You do not have to get married today. There is not one happy person up in that living room. We can figure something else out." I heard my father's deep, baritone Southern drawl behind me, and he said, "Julia, your sister has made a mistake in which we will all pay. You have shown us this week that you do not have the moral character that we expect for our family." And just like that, the person that everybody was thinking was the sympathetic character in our family drama turned into the villain. That night, I went to the kitchen, and the first time ever, I read a New Yorker magazine at the table. And I thought to myself, a baby really changes everything. Thank y'all.